The story begins with a man entering a bar searching for a girl named Silver Bill. This girl is a spy, and the man needs her help to uncover his son's killer. Silver Bill, however, is none other than Chaeok, whom we saw in the previous season. Although much time has passed in the story, Chaeok still looks young. That's because at the end of the last season, her body was infused with the essence of a Nagin monster. This monstrous power has not only kept her youthful, but also granted her superpowers. In simple terms, she has retained a part of the Nagin monster's essence. To hide her old identity, she has changed her name. The scene shifts to a biker chasing a man. The biker causes an accident, successfully killing the man. When the helmet is removed, it is revealed that the biker was none other than Tai Sang, our hero. However, this was a flashback showing that Tai Sang is now dead. In Season 2, we meet his look-alike, Hojai. Hojai, like Chaeok, is also a spy, working for young Tai, the grandson of Tai Sang's old friend. Hojai is investigating a case and arrives at a hotel. However, he accidentally enters the wrong room, where he finds Ki-han's lifeless body. Ki-han is the same man Chaeok was tasked with finding. Flashbacks show that Ki-han had been relentlessly pursued by unknown assailants. Although he tried hiding in the hotel, his pursuers eventually caught up with him. The killer isn't shown clearly, but we see that the killer had tentacles instead of hands, confirming it was a Nagin monster. Meanwhile, Hojai is arrested by the police after being found at the crime scene. Although he is a private investigator and known to the police, they suspect him of the murder. Hojai convinces the police of his innocence, but they demand evidence. The inspector gives him 10 days to find the real killer. During the investigation, the police discover that Ki-han was a guard at Yeongseong Biotech Company. We are shown the company's building, located within Yeongseong Hospital, the place where Nagin monsters were created in the previous season. Prisoners were forcibly injected with Nagin essence, turning them into monsters. Ki-han's grieving father, desperate for answers, also hires Chaeok to investigate his son's death. Now, both Chaeok and Hojai are searching for the killer. Chaeok sees Hojai in the hotel footage and mistakes him for the killer, pursuing him. Similarly, Hojai sees Chaeok in the footage and assumes she is the killer. Hojai wants to investigate further, but his friend Yeong-gil discourages him, warning him to stay out of danger. However, Hojai's determination drives him forward. Yeong-gil remembers a promise to his grandfather and joins Hojai in the investigation. They find out that Chaeok visits a rooftop daily. Hojai starts following her. Meanwhile, at Chaeok's home, a killer breaks in and discovers photos of Tai Sang. Shocked, he leaves the house. The scene shifts to Hojai confronting Chaeok, leading to a fierce fight. As the battle intensifies, Chaeok recognizes Hojai's face and suddenly hugs him, crying. Hojai is confused but feels a strange connection to her. Chaeok calls him Tai Sang, leaving him shocked. The story cuts to Yeongseong Biotech Lab, where doctors are experimenting on humans. A patient is thrown into a cage with a Nagin monster, but the outcome is not shown. Flashbacks reveal that Chaeok's mother was infected with the Nagin virus, turning her into a Nagin monster. When she regained her senses, she found herself surrounded by dead bodies, realizing she had killed them all. In the present, Chaeok and Hojai decide to work together to solve the case. Chaeok already knows the killer isn't human because Ki-han's brain was missing, a signature of Nagin monsters. However, she is puzzled about how these creatures have resurfaced after so many years. Meanwhile, the killer who stole Chaeok's sketch takes it to Madame Na, her boss, asking her to investigate Tai Sang. Before Madame Na can act, the killer murders her in the same manner as Ki-han. Chaeok witnesses the killer fleeing and chases him, cornering him momentarily. The killer attacks Chaeok with his tentacles. Before he can kill her, Hojai arrives just in time, saving her. The killer escapes and Hojai takes Chaeok to the hospital. At Yeongseong Biotech, the chairman scolds Captain Croc for losing control of his experiments. Flashbacks reveal that Captain Croc was implanted with Nagin essence by the company to keep the experiments alive. Hojai confronts Yeong-gil about his past, but Yeong-gil advises him to let it go. Chaeok arrives, asking for Hojai's help to find the killer, who turns out to be Sing-jo. At Sing-jo's home, they uncover a photo of Lady Maida's husband, who was turned into a Nagin monster out of vengeance. This version eliminates the timestamps while maintaining the original structure. When Chaeok saw Hojai's face, she suddenly broke into tears and hugged him. This left Hojai feeling strange, as if he knew her, as if there was a deep connection between them. Hearing Chaeok call him Tae-sang shocked him as well. The scene shifts to the Yeongseong Biotech Lab, where doctors are still conducting experiments on humans. A patient is thrown into a cage with a Nagin monster. What happens to the patient is not shown. The story cuts to a flashback showing how Chaeok's mother was affected by the Nagin virus, turning her into a Nagin monster. When she regained her senses, she found herself surrounded by dead bodies. Among them were 2 children, begging her for their lives. Horrified, she fled, only to find more dead bodies along the way. She realized she had killed them all in her monstrous form. This realization terrified her, and she returned home in fear. A few days later, Korea gained independence from Japan. Tae-sang was overjoyed, and although Chaeok wanted to meet him, she was terrified of hurting him because of the monster she had become. Without meeting him, she chose to distance herself from Tae-sang. Back in the present, Chaeok meets Hojai, initially mistaking him for the killer. Hojai clarifies the misunderstanding, revealing he is not the killer. Chaeok, however, already suspected the truth. When she saw Ki-han's body, there was a hole in his eye, and his brain was missing. Only a Najin monster could consume a brain, confirming the killer's inhuman identity. What puzzled her was how these monsters had reappeared after so many years and why they were killing humans so ruthlessly. Hojai tells Chaeok that he too wants to find the killer and suggests working together to solve the case. Chaeok, however, declines his help. Throughout their interactions, Chaeok repeatedly calls Hojai by the name Tae-sang, leaving him confused about who Tae-sang really is. Back home, Hojai asks his friend Yeong-gil about Tae-sang, but Yeong-gil's reaction makes it clear that he knows more than he is letting on. Meanwhile, Chaeok returns to her home and discovers that Tae-sang's sketch is missing from her drawer. She realizes someone broke into her house and is watching her. The thief who stole the sketch takes it to Madame Na, Chaeok's boss, and asks her to investigate Tae-sang, who has been missing for a year. Madame Na assigns the investigation to Chaeok. However, as soon as the killer learns about this, he murders Madame Na in the same way as Ki-han, leaving a hole in her head and her brain missing. Chaeok arrives near Madame Na's office just as the murder occurs. She spots the killer and starts chasing him. Meanwhile, Hojai learns about Madame Na's murder from Detective Nu, who shows him pictures of victims killed in the same manner. All the evidence points to Nagin monsters. Chaeok manages to corner the killer but is attacked. Realizing that Chaeok is also part Nagin monster, the killer declares he cannot let her live. He stabs her in the stomach with his tentacle, attempting to kill her. Before Chaeok can succumb to her injuries, Hojai arrives just in time. The killer flees, and Hojai rushes Chaeok to the hospital. At the hospital, Hojai finds Chaeok's bracelet in his hand. Wanting to meet her, he searches for her, but Chaeok, after receiving treatment, escapes through the back door. The scene shifts to Yeongseong Biotech Company, where the chairman scolds Captain Croc for losing control over the experiments. Flashbacks reveal that Captain Croc himself had been implanted with Nagin essence by the company to keep their experiments alive. Hojai, still grappling with the mystery of his past, questions Yeong-gil about the missing memories from his life. Yeong-gil advises him to leave the past behind, saying it was too terrifying to revisit. As they talk, Chaeok arrives, asking Hojai to help her find the killer, who turns out to be Sing-jo. At Sing-jo's house, they find evidence tying him to Lady Maida's husband, who was turned into a Nagin monster as part of a revenge scheme. The chairman of Yeongseong Biotech Company is shown furious at Jeong-shu for killing so many people. The killer's name is revealed to be Jong-jo, who has a deep connection with the Yeongseong Biotech Company. Captain Croc is harshly reprimanded and told to stop the murders. In response, he raises a new question. Is Tae-sang still alive? Hojai, meanwhile, visits another woman to gather information about Chaeok. This woman, upon seeing Hojai, calls him Tae-sang. Confused, Hojai asks, "Who is Tae-sang?" She changes the subject, saying, "You are very much like Tae-sang, kind-hearted, and since your office is above Tae-sang's old shop, his name must have slipped out of my mouth." Inside the biotech company, the chairman is seen scolding Captain Croc for his uncontrollable experiments. He warns Captain Croc that if he doesn't regain control soon, his position will be given to someone else. Flashbacks reveal that Yeongseong Company implanted Nagin essence into Captain Croc to ensure their experiments and operations continued successfully. Hojai then approaches his friend Young-gil with questions about his past. He cannot recall anything from the last year, suspecting he may have had an accident. Young-gil advises him to forget the past, saying it was too horrifying, and to focus on the present instead. As they talk, there's a knock at the door. Chaeok arrives, asking for Hojai's help to find the killer, who is actually Jongjo. Jongjo had hidden all the stolen items from Chaeok's house. Inside his drawer, they discover a picture of Lady Maida's husband. Out of hatred, Lady Maida had Nagin essence implanted in her husband while she was pregnant. When her son was born, the Nagin essence had transferred to the child. This child turned out to be Jongjo, Maida's son. Later, Young-gil receives a call from an old woman named Madame M. Her face isn't shown, but her intentions and connection with Young-gil remain unclear for now. Meanwhile, Chaeok is shown in a severely injured state. When Nagin monsters are injured, they need human brains to heal themselves. Struggling to control her monstrous instincts, Chaeok manages to return home and injects herself with a serum to feel better. After recovering slightly, she notices that the bracelet given to her by Taesang is missing. Chaeok then heads to Hojai's house to continue her investigation. There, it is revealed that Madame Na had placed a microphone while speaking to Hojai earlier. However, Madame Na doesn't gain much from this, as Chaeok and Hojai speak in coded language. Chaeok advises Hojai to call Madame Na's phone number, as the phone is now in the possession of the killer, Jongjo. Jongjo is then shown at the lab, angrily banging on Captain Croc's office door. This enrages Captain Croc further. Meanwhile, Jongchu receives a call. It's Hojai, arranging a meeting with him. Chaeok is also with Hojai, and they decide to confront the killer together. Madame Na, who has been eavesdropping on their plans, decides to follow them. By evening, Hojai and Chaeok arrive at the location provided by Jongjo. They sense something unusual in the atmosphere. Before they can figure things out, a group of Nagin monsters attacks them. It turns out the killer had set a trap for them. As Young-gil steps forward to help, Jongjo appears and blocks his way. Inside the building, chaos unfolds. Chaeok wanted to fight all the monsters, but didn't want to reveal her truth to Hojai. To ensure she could fight freely, she pushed Hojai off the building. When Hojai fell, he noticed Young-gil unconscious and also encountered Jongjo. Hojai questioned Jongjo about the murders he had committed. Their conversation soon escalated into a fight, with Hojai struggling as Jongjo possessed the strength of a Najin monster. Meanwhile, the monsters upstairs subdued Chaeok using nitrogen gas and brought her down. Jongjo then stabbed Chaeok with his tentacle. At that moment, Chaeok had a vision of the time when her mother, who had become a monster, stabbed her. This incident had happened in front of Taesang, revealing that Hojai was actually Taesang. The reason behind his youthful appearance was evident. He, too, carried the Nagin virus. This raised questions. Did Taesang also possess a Nagin monster within him? How did he get infected? These mysteries would unfold later. Before Jongjo could kill Hojai, he noticed a mark on Hojai's neck, which confused him. He decided to leave, confident that the damage he had inflicted on Chaeok would soon activate her Nagin side, ensuring she wouldn't survive. Chaeok, severely injured and starving, needed a human brain to heal. Struggling to control her instincts, she began to run away, afraid of committing murder. Hojai caught up to her and hugged her as fragments of his past memories started to resurface. Chaeok urged him to stay away, but suddenly both of them lost consciousness. When Hojai woke up, he found himself in a hospital with Madame Nu by his side. Madame Nu informed him that the police suspected him and Chaeok of attacking Young-gil and Jongjo's team. Blood samples found at the scene belonged to both Hojai and Chaeok. Upon learning that Young-gil was in critical condition, Hojai insisted on meeting him, but no one was allowed to visit. The scene shifts to the chairman of Yeongseong Biotech Company, who is sitting with an elderly woman, discussing the details of their experiments. Outside, a mysterious woman overhears their conversation. Meanwhile, The police investigate the crime scene and discover a nitrogen canister with the Yeongseong biotech label. The police order Madame Nu to discharge Ho-jae and bring him to the station. But before this could happen, Jong-jo visits Ho-jae and informs him about Chaeok. He reveals that Chaeok is being held captive in the basement of Yeongseong Biotech's building. Following Jong-jo's plan, Ho-jae manages to escape the hospital and reaches Young-gil. He confronts him, asking why he knocked him unconscious with a bat and what had happened to him. Ho-jae is filled with questions about Chaeok and Young-gil's involvement. Young-gil advises Ho-jae to stay away from his past life. Before Young-gil could say more, doctors arrived, forcing Ho-jae to leave. The scene cuts to Yeongseong Biotech, where Chaeok scans are being analyzed. It is discovered that the noggin virus in both Chaeok and Jong-jo is located at the back of their brains. Unlike typical noggin infections, which occupy the top of the brain, this indicated that they had been infected with a more advanced strain of the virus. It was also revealed that both Chaeok and Jong-jo had inherited the virus from their mothers. Chaeok is shown imprisoned in a cell, placed near another captive named Jung-yo. The boy introduces himself to Chaeok and, continuing the dialogue, would reveal further developments in the story. The noggin virus has returned to Tae-sang's brain, restoring all his memories. After his past accident, the virus had left his body, causing memory loss as a side effect. Now that the virus is back, Tae-sang remembers everything. Jong-jo, under the pretense of fighting Tae-sang, creates a path for him to meet Chaeok. During the fight, Tae-sang accidentally stops Chaeok, mistaking her for a guard. Before they could be captured, Jong-jo helps them escape. Why Jong-jo is helping them remains a mystery for now. The scene shifts to the elderly lady Tae-sang had approached earlier for information about Chaeok. She calls the police inspector, informing him that Ho-jae could not have committed the murders because he is, in fact, the real Tae-sang. The story then moves into Jong-jo's past. It is revealed that Lady Maida, who herself carried a noggin virus, adopted Jong-jo. As a child, Jong-jo was unaware of his true nature until one day he lost control, killing a maid by stabbing her in the eye with his tentacle and consuming her brain. Despite this, Lady Maida supported him and covered up his crime. She commanded everyone to keep the incident a secret. From that day, Jong-jo obeyed Lady Maida without question. Lady Maida and Kato took advantage of this loyalty, conducting experiments on Jong-jo. One day, through their conversations, Jong-jo discovered the truth. He wasn't a special child adopted by Lady Maida, but an experiment. The noggin virus inside him had been inherited from his mother, and it allowed him to transform into a noggin monster. Despite knowing the truth, Jong-jo pretended to remain loyal to Lady Maida, acting as though he believed she was his mother. Back in the present, Jong-jo is shown having breakfast with Lady Maida. She questions him about his meeting with Tae-sang, but Jong-jo evades her questions. Lady Maida then hands him a pen-like injection, which unsettles him. Jong-jo later goes to the biotech lab, where he frees Jung-yo, a monster who has yet to learn control over his powers. Jung-yo goes to a subway station and kills many people, causing news of the massacre to spread quickly. Jong-jo then visits Chaeok and Tae-sang, confessing that he orchestrated the subway massacre. He reveals that he wants to expose all of Lady Maida and Kato's evil deeds and take revenge on Lady Maida for what she did to him. However, Chaeok struggles to believe his words. Meanwhile, at the police station, the inspector learns that Yeongseong Institute, not Tae-sang, is behind the murders. The inspector recalls a meeting with the elderly lady who had insisted that Tae-sang wasn't responsible for the murders and reminded him of all the help Tae-sang had provided in the past, even saving the inspector's family. She then tasked the inspector with finding her grandson, who had been hired for a special experiment by Yeongseong Institute. As soon as he was hired, 10 million yen was transferred to his account, but he hasn't been heard from since. In the present, Tae-sang calls the inspector, informing him that his memory has returned. He also reveals that Yeongseong Institute is behind all the murders. At the institute, the chairman shifts the blame onto Captain Croc, accusing him of freeing Jung-yo. However, Captain Croc denies this and hints at deeper issues within the institute. Lady Maida is behind all of this. as she has been targeting Tae-sang and likely orchestrated this trap to implicate him. Captain Croc reveals that Kato had given him the Nagin virus to save the company. He declares that if he has to kill Lady Maida or even Kato to protect the company, he will not hesitate. The scene shifts to Tae-sang, who is heading to meet Jung-yo at the subway station. Jong-jo wants to accompany him, but Tae-sang refuses. Before Tae-sang can meet Jung-yo, the entire team from Yeongseong Institute intercepts him and takes him into custody. Meanwhile, the police, led by an inspector, arrive at the subway station to capture Jung-yo. They have an arrest warrant from a high authority that allows them to detain Jung-yo, citing his infection with a dangerous virus that could harm others. However, the police fail to catch Jung-yo and leave, unaware that Tae-sang was also present. Tae-sang is kidnapped by Captain Croc's team, who inject something into his neck. They erase all surveillance footage from the subway station cameras to cover their tracks. Instead of releasing Tae-sang, they put him in a van and drive away. When Chaeok learns of this, she starts pursuing them, accompanied by Detective Nu and Jong-jo. Realizing he is being followed, Captain Croc deploys his team and vehicles to create distractions. While others follow different leads, Jong-jo shares a past memory with Chaeok. He recalls how Tae-sang once planned to destroy the entire Yeongseong lab. Jong-jo wanted to help Tae-sang because he had shown him kindness and love that no one else had. However, when Tae-sang needed him the most, Jong-jo stepped back due to Lady Maida. Jong-jo admits that he regrets not supporting Tae-sang, and because of that, the lab continued its evil work. He assures Chaeok that he now wants to destroy the lab. When Chaeok asks why he didn't help Tae-sang back then, Jong-jo reveals that Lady Maida found out about his plan and kidnapped him. She injected a solution into his body, suppressing his Nagin virus for a day and leaving him powerless. As a result, he couldn't save anyone. Lady Maida also captured Tae-sang and extracted his Nagin virus, causing his memory loss. Jong-jo confesses that he was the one who recently restored Tae-sang's memory by giving the virus back to him. The scene shifts to the present, where Jong-jo shares all this with Chaeok, but suddenly crashes his car with both of them inside. After the crash, Jong-jo injects Chaeok with the same solution that suppresses the Nagin virus, making her vulnerable to anyone who wants to harm her. Elsewhere, Captain Croc is torturing Tae-sang. A flashback reveals a part of Captain Croc's past, where he was trying to save his girlfriend. He begged for 3 months to treat her and planned to inject her with the mature Nagin virus from Jung-yo's brain. He believed this would not only heal her, but also allow her to control her monster variant. The scene shifts back to Chaeok and Jong-jo, where it is revealed that Jong-jo is still helping Lady Maida. Lady Maida's ultimate plan is to have Tae-sang kill Chaeok himself, fulfilling her twisted desire to see him destroy his beloved. She hopes this will push Tae-sang back to her side. However, since Tae-sang has regained his memory and would never do this, Jong-jo is tasked with killing Chaeok instead. Before Jong-jo can harm Chaeok, to be continued. Detective Nu arrives and shoots Jong-jo in the eye, leaving him gravely injured. Just as Jong-jo is about to leave, Lady Maida's men arrive to kill him. Jong-jo is heartbroken, realizing that his mother, for whom he had risked so much, was now trying to have him killed. Meanwhile, Captain Croc and Tae-sang engage in a fierce fight. Tae-sang tries to escape, but eventually overpowers Captain Croc, taking the solution-filled syringe that can neutralize the Nagin monsters. Before Tae-sang injects Captain Croc with the solution, Captain Croc suggests saving it for Lady Maida, saying it could be useful. Captain Croc then receives a call informing him that Lady Maida has kidnapped Jung-yo and is letting his Nagin virus mature for her purposes. She plans to inject the mature virus into her girlfriend to heal her, while retaining control over her monstrous side. Without the mature virus, Captain Croc is left helpless and decides to strike a new deal with Lady Maida. The scene shifts to a flashback where young Gil begs Lady Maida to spare Tae-sang's life, promising never to interfere in Tae-sang's work or reveal his past. In the present, young Gil regains consciousness, and the inspector immediately rushes to take his statement. However, on the way, the inspector is kidnapped. Later, he is shown locked in a cage alongside young Gil and Jung-yo. Lady Maida and Tae-sang are also present, as Lady Maida has set up an experiment specifically for Tae-sang. Captain Croc is seen attempting to extract the Nagin monster from Chayok's body for Lady Maida's plans. He had made a deal with Lady Maida to neutralize Chayok by removing her Nagin virus, which would ultimately kill her and draw Taesang back to Lady Maida. Before Taesang could be forced to kill his own friends, he remembers the syringe given to him by Captain Croc. He quickly injects Lady Maida with the solution and starts saving his friends, who had been thrown in front of the Nagin monsters. Using his telekinetic abilities, Taesang fights the monsters and rescues his companions. One of the monsters, however, appears to recognize Taesang's pain and humanity. Standing before the monster, Taesang uses his telepathic powers to calm its mind. Lady Maida realizes her plans are failing and releases nitrogen gas to knock the monster unconscious. This gives Taesang the opportunity to save Chayok. As the inspector and Taesang's allies escape the facility, the inspector notices a watch on one of the men and recognizes him as someone secretly working with Yeongseong Institute. It becomes clear that this man had helped Lady Maida orchestrate the inspector's kidnapping. Realizing the true danger of the Institute's intentions, the inspector orders Detective Nu to issue warrants to shut down the facility. Despite their efforts, the investigation fails to uncover concrete evidence, and the lab remains operational. The inspector is visibly frustrated, knowing the truth, but unable to act. In a final scene, Jong-jo approaches Lady Maida, who he still loves as his mother. However, Lady Maida coldly tells him, "I never loved you. How could I love you when you are just a tool to me? You were never my son." She reveals that the mature virus originally belonged to Myungja and was passed down to Jong-jo, giving him extraordinary abilities. Lady Maida admits she kept him close for years, only to use him for her plans. Hearing the truth, Jong-jo felt completely broken. He had spent his entire life obeying Lady Maida's commands like a servant, but he did it all out of love for her. Now, with all his emotions gone, he pushed Lady Maida into the monster's container. Lady Maida was burned to death by the acid released from the monster's body. After this, we see Taesang again, still trying to save Chayok. He returns to the biotech lab, where Chayok had been placed into a container designed to extract the Nagin virus from her body. Taesang didn't want the virus removed from her because it would cause her to lose all her memories. However, by the time Taesang reached her, the virus had already been extracted. Chayok had become a normal human, but she had also lost all her memories. The tank that Taesang broke in an attempt to save her also killed the Nagin monster inside. Captain Croc, now left without a mature Nagin virus, had no way to heal his girlfriend. Since Chayok had lost her memory, she couldn't recognize Taesang anymore and was once again separated from her love. Taesang entrusted the same elderly lady to take care of Chayok. As the season progresses, we see Chayok living a normal life, attending college, while Taesang visits her daily to watch over her from afar. As for Yeongseong Institute, it is revealed that the lab continued to operate in secret. While Lady Maida had died, Jong-jo had taken over the operations, giving instructions to the chairman. The institute began infusing the Nagin virus into bottles of mineral water, which were then shipped worldwide. The season ends with the mystery of how far the virus will spread and the destruction it will bring.